Here it is. Hold on, let me give a closer look. There it is. And now it is time to go shoot a music video with this bad boy. Let's get going.
Just met, barely, just you, just me, basically strangers falling. Downtown, chillin', heartbeat spilling, don't wanna trip and fall in love. Is it bad that you seem too good? See the end way before I should. I know we just started, but if you're listening to my heart, you might find out the weirdest part. I am already missing you from the start. I'm already missing you. I'm already missing you. Don't fall quickly, loving easy, lessons in love I never learned. But this feeling's different. You're a brand new face, but my oldest friend. Hold on tight until it burns. Is it bad that you seem too good? See the end way before I should. I know we just started, but if you're listening to my heart, you might find out the weirdest part. I am already missing you from the start. I'm already missing you. I'm already missing you. Put your ear to my chest, put your ear to my chest. Come on, won't you hear the rest? Put your ear to my chest, put your ear to my chest. I'm already missing you. Put your ear to my chest, put your ear to my chest. Come on, won't you hear the rest? Put your ear to my chest, put your ear to my chest. I'm already missing you.
To make a statement like the title of this video, I know it's bold, and I know a lot of you will say in the comments, it's not about the camera you use, it's about the individual who uses it. Which that is true. Over the past couple months, I have been on a wild ride with this camera, from going to Japan and picking up the camera before release, shooting weddings in the mountains, to corporate videos, YouTube and social videos, boating footage, then driving to the middle of nowhere to capture some rodeos, demolition derbies, animal shows, a fair and live events, a bunch of outdoors and water sports stock footage, a band concert, to going all over Tokyo to capture all kinds of content. Like, I'm telling you, I have thrown almost everything you can think of at this camera. Then of course, shooting the music video you just watched, which will sum up why I believe that this camera, the LUMIX S5IIX, makes filmmakers/videographers more valuable. My name's Dustin, your video tour guide, and for this one, get on the edge of your seat, lean in, focus, and enjoy the video. By the way, I'm giving away this L-mount lens if you follow me on Instagram, and once we reach 10K, I will be choosing a winner. Before I get going, I'm going to be talking about real-world examples and shoots that I just mentioned and what I learned while using this camera in those specific use cases. I will be going from most boring to least boring, least in my opinion, as far as what I have to say. Number one, Weddings and corporate events. I put these together because they're kind of the same, and I have the least amount of footage because for the weddings I shot, I was only a second shooter. I don't do weddings anymore. And corporate events. For these use cases, I was mostly on a gimbal the whole time shooting B-roll with minimal lighting setups and mostly relying on natural light or house lighting. The biggest thing that I learned in this situation is that if you turn on the camera's autofocus to full area human detect and expect it to focus exactly where you want, it won't. The camera detects way too many subjects in the scene, and honestly, it just has no clue what to do or focus on. You can select which subject you want it to focus on using the joystick if there are multiple subjects, but I found this unreliable. It'll focus on another subject when it stops detecting the subject you selected, and then when it detects that other subject again, it just won't go back to it. It only kind of works with a smaller group of people, it feels like. So there's two things you can try or do in scenarios with lots of people. First one is to change from human detect to face/eye detect. The autofocus doesn't perform as well in regards to detecting a subject and letting you know that it's actually detecting a subject, at least in my experience. But I do feel like it does a better job with multiple, and it isn't as sensitive as it is when it's in human detect. Like for example, in human detect, if I'm shooting behind somebody, it wants to detect the human in the foreground, whereas I want it to focus on the face. And number two, if it's still not going where you want it to go, you can touch the screen where you want it to focus and this box will appear. This was the best way I found to control exactly where I needed the focus to be. And if the focus is for whatever reason just kind of stuck on a spot, half press the shutter button and it should grab what you need. There is the option to mess around with the autofocus speed and sensitivity, but I found sometimes the focus is harder to get to do what you want when you mess with it. Number two, social content and YouTube videos. Not only have I been shooting content for myself, but for other creators and brands as well with this camera. The biggest takeaway from this is 6K open gate is your best friend. If you know you're going to be delivering your content in horizontal and vertical formats, this is the best way to shoot because you only have to shoot it once. The open gate footage will give you the flexibility to adjust the scene up and down, but that extra data on the top and bottom is more forgiving when you crop the video for vertical in post. One thing I did is I have a custom button set up where I can turn on the frame marker that's 9:16, so on the go I can make sure I'm keeping my subject close to the middle of the scene so I don't have to reframe it later. And I know there's smart reframe in Premiere and Resolve, but it doesn't always work that great, so I prefer to get it right in camera. If you are into vlogging, the stabilization is great, probably one of the best on the market, but at wider focal lengths, you may see some wobble in the corners. I recommend turning E-stabilization to help with this, but around 24 millimeters, I don't really see the wobble anymore. Number three, live events and animals. The stuff I covered in use case 1 does apply here as well, but there's some different things to think about in these situations. The events I was specifically covering was a festival, rodeos, fairs, animal shows, and a demolition derby. Number one, I was shooting in long GOP using SD cards. I had zero problems in that case. In this use case, I was shooting all I with the exception of 6K sometimes. That's just not even available in all I. But on one of the days I was shooting, one of my SD cards was running extremely slow. I would hit the record button and it would take like 5 seconds to start recording, and the same thing would happen when I would stop recording as well. I reached out to Matt at Panasonic and he said that it's possible that the card needs a deep format, so if you run into this issue, keep that in mind. I am also using SanDisk V90 cards that Panasonic recommends, and I wasn't having issues before. Now I did have another card on hand, but I was usually filling up the card by midday and I didn't want to rely on this one card. So guess what came in clutch? The Condor Blue ProBlade top handle that I brought with me. This will enable you to record via an external SSD. Literally came in so clutch, and something I noticed as well, which isn't surprising, when I would hit record, the camera would immediately start recording, and the same thing goes for when I would stop recording as well. It would just stop immediately. I noticed even when your SD card is functioning normally, there is a slight delay when you start and stop recording. So if you're shooting a live event and recording at higher bit depths, it might be wise to use an SSD to ensure you don't miss that one crucial moment, because your camera has that slight delay. The disadvantage though to using an SSD is that the camera does take longer to boot up when it's turned off, so just bring some extra batteries because you're probably going to be leaving your camera on for longer. Now there's other cheaper options besides this ProBlade top handle, like just a normal SSD drive. I also have a ProBlade enclosure as well right here that I'll probably use in some scenarios over the Condor Blue handle for different loadouts. I had to say it. I'm calling them loadouts from now on. I don't play enough video games anymore, so I need this. Back to the stabilization though, the warpy corners at wider focal lengths, there was even times I would literally just stand there, just getting a static shot, and even just me holding the camera would introduce this warpy corners. This is definitely the area I think Panasonic can improve on, since I'm literally just standing there. One way you can combat this is also to use the Boost IS. This also comes in clutch at longer focal lengths as well. Just don't forget to turn it off when you're done. Now, animal autofocus. I'm actually very impressed. I literally threw so many animals at this autofocus system and it recognizes all of them. Cows, cattle, swine, sheep, goats, poultry, cats, dogs, rabbits, deer, so many animals. The one complaint I do wish I could separate animal and human detect, which with the release of the G9 Mark II, which I'm filming on right now, this does do that, and luckily for us S5 II and S5 IIX owners, that system is built on the same engine, so I'm very hopeful that we will be getting a firmware update eventually that will change to the same system that the G9 Mark II is using. I'm very excited. The one other thing to note about the autofocus is that it does not do well in low light. It's way safer just to change the manual when it gets too dark. Just take my word for it. I learned the hard way. Now, I have some more thoughts in number 4. Promo videos and stock footage. Specifically here, I made a promo video of a boat and shot a ton of stock footage for a client of the agency I work for. The big takeaway here, the IBIS again. So we had an FX3 rigged up to a tilt-a-arm on the boat, and just to try to cover as much ground and get as much footage as we could, I was shooting with the S5 IIX handheld. These shots were with dual IS with the 70-200 f4, and just look how smooth this is. Now keep in mind, we are on a boat, on the water, and if you've ever been on a boat, it does this. So the fact that I could shoot all of this handheld in those conditions is just crazy to me. Even when comparing it to the FX3 on the tilter arm, I had to add stabilization in post in order to get it to look smooth. Whereas on my S5 IIX, I rarely had to, except when I got really wide. Stupid warpy corners. The camera did get some water on it when I was shooting some shots close to the water and on the kayak, and I know people worry about the weather sealing on this camera because of the vent, but it didn't hurt it. Still works great, just only fresh water. Matt told me that when I sent him this picture. Now, everything I mentioned above, including number 2 and number 1, I was probably shooting 60% on the Sigma 16-28 f.2 and the Sigma 24-70 f2.8. Then 30% of it was on the Panasonic 70-200 f4, and 10% of it was on these Panasonic f1.8 lenses. So 18, 24, 35, 50, and 85. Hopefully those are in order. On this promo video I shot of a band, I used a set of Cine lenses called Dual Lens APO Mini Primes. There's a review video. I purchased the whole set myself, but I rent them through a rental house company that's nearby. It was also shot in B-RAW. If you watched a previous video of mine, you will kind of be up to speed, but what I learned is that B-RAW is amazing, and I want to shoot literally everything in B-RAW now. Like guys, if you are in DaVinci Resolve and you're not using B-RAW, like just trust me. Make it a goal. It's amazing and it gives you so much flexibility in post as long as you're willing to deal with the large files. You can't shoot open gate though. Maybe in a future camera. I know in my last video too, I did say that I was gonna talk more about this in this video as well, but I think I pretty much covered it in my last video, so just go watch that if you want to learn more about the gear needed and my experience. A brief summary is just the HDMI lag is really annoying. I would sometimes just look at the viewfinder instead of the monitor because of this, and I wish there was some kind of smaller solution as opposed to a monitor that would enable you to shoot B-RAW. I don't always want to put a monitor on my camera, and you wouldn't have to care about the HDMI lag without it. I do want to talk more about image quality, but I'll likely cover that in number 5. Music videos and creative videos. Crazy thing, that music video you watched at the beginning was actually the first project I shot on this camera. The music video was for a content creator named Foosley, who is the singer in the video and was in collaboration with another content creator named Harris. Harris owns a music company called Streambeats, and at the time I was working full-time for Harris. The crew and production of this music video was just the three of us. We did plan out the video and shots we were going to get before we started shooting though. The lenses I used were the Sirui Venus 50mm and the Sirui Saturn 35mm anamorphic lenses and a gimbal. That's it. There was one shot that was on a Sony A1 that I used in the video because we wanted that clip to be in 8K, but the rest of the video was shot in 6K open gate besides that one clip. One thing to note is that this camera does have anamorphic settings built in. You have D-squeeze monitoring and anamorphic IBIS settings, but it does not have a 1.6 times squeeze. So for monitoring, that's not a huge problem because 1.5 times is close enough, but you have to completely turn off your IBIS. Some people like that off, but I personally prefer it on because I did shoot a whole concept video on the S5IIX with the 50mm Sirui anamorphic that was all handheld, and some of the shots were just really shaky. And when you combine that with the biggest weakness of this camera, the rolling shutter, it's just not a good combo. For this music video though, I stayed on the gimbal the whole time, so I didn't need IBIS anyways. Really, the main takeaway about using this camera on this project is the value of 6K OpenGate. I mean, I think the footage just really speaks for itself when it comes to image quality, not just in B-RAW, but in camera as well. Like, this camera is only $2,200, and the fact that I can make a creative, high quality anamorphic project with nothing else besides the lenses, the gimbal, and the camera is pretty unreal. And if you think you need ProRes or B-RAW to make your footage look better, even the internal codecs are amazing for post-production. I did a lot to the footage of this music video to get the look you see. So if recording externally is not your thing, trust me, you don't need to stress about it. You can get extremely nice results on a very minimal setup. So to answer the big question, how does this camera make me more valuable? I think it's pretty obvious. Look at the footage and scenarios I put this camera through and the crews that it required. Basically none. I was pretty much solo for all these scenarios, and I'm not saying that other cameras couldn't do these jobs, but at what cost? I guarantee that in order to have the convenience, features, reliability, and quality in these scenarios with a different brand, you'd be spending a lot more money. Stop sleeping on LUMIX and try it out if you haven't already, because I promise you're missing out. That was very direct. I feel like I need to do this.